we have made a salt solution so far by dissolving a spoon of salt in 50 milliliters of water. Our question is, can we make a more concentrated solution by dissolving 2 spoons of salt in 50 milliliters of water? Yes, because we'd be increasing the solute. What if we dissolved 3 spoons, 5 spoons? Can we keep dissolving salt in water forever? Our question today, is there a limit to the amount of salt that will dissolve in 50 milliliters of water? So we're going to use a bottle like this to add some water and salt to. How much water are we going to start in here to begin with? We're going to add our 50 milliliters of water. And we're not going to add any more water as we continue. We're not going to add any more because we're trying to determine how much salt will dissolve in 50 milliliters of water. So after I put my water in there, I'm going to put my sticky note here just so that I can see where my water is, because that will be important a little bit later. Now I'm going to use the funnel 2 ways. I'm going to use this right now to direct salt into the water. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to keep count of how much, or we're going to count or see how much salt gets put in there. So I'm going to add 1, 2, 3. Okay, then I'm going to put my lid on and shake it up to just help it dissolve a little bit quicker. Okay, so we see that my salt dissolved. So now I'm going to add more. So add 3 more spoonfuls of salt. Shake it up. So what do you think we're looking for? We're going to see if there's a point where no more salt dissolves in the water. Okay. And so you probably see that I have some salt on the bottom of my little bottle here. Okay. So what was the effect on the salt when we put it in the water? It dissolved. Okay. Where is the salt now? It's in the solution. If we look right here, our level of water actually went up because we've added more salt into it. The salt had to go someplace. When it went into the water, it took up space, raising the level of the liquid. Okay? So we made the solution by dissolving solid material in a liquid. In this case, the solution was salt dissolved in water. When solid material is added to a solution until no more will dissolve, it becomes a saturated solution. Okay. So did we make a saturated solution today? Did we add enough salt where no more would dissolve? Yes. So what is our evidence that our solution is saturated? Well, it's this undissolved salt here at the bottom of the bottle. Okay. So now our question is to find out that now that we have a saturated solution, we want to find out how much salt it took to saturate that 50 milliliters of water. You may say, well, we put in 6 spoons. Okay, well, reporting the amount of salt in the spoons is not very precise. You could have been super careful and level. You could have been like me and just kind of dumped it in there. And also, when we do this in class, some bottles may have a lot more salt on the bottom than mine did. So what's the actual point that it became saturated? So what we really need to know is how many grams of salt it takes to saturate 50 milliliters of water. So in other words, how many grams of salt are dissolved in here? Because if I can figure out how much salt is dissolved, that's the point that it's got to reach. Okay, so let's think about our solution here. Is the undissolved salt at the bottom of the bottle part of the saturated solution? Maybe. Or is it more of a mixture? Could I separate this undissolved salt from my solution? What do you think the mass of this salt water is, of 50 milliliters? Okay, so let's come up with a procedure. Okay. So one thing we're going to do is we are going to put a cup under our filter. Okay, this is going to be where I keep the salt. So I'm going to put just a little sticky note on it so that I know it's going to be the salt solution. Okay, now I'm going to filter the solution using wet filter paper. The saturated solution will pass through the filter, but the undissolved salt won't. So place my filter paper in there. Okay. So first off, let's give it a quick shake so I get any salt off the bottom. And let's pour our saturated solution through our filter. And you can see there's still some salt left in the bottle. We just want to get the filtered water out. All right, so now that that's done dissolving, I'm going to use my balance, move my filter out of the way, to figure out how much salt is dissolved in this water. Okay, so I'm going to put my salt on one side, and then I'm going to add 50 milliliters of plain water to the other side. And you can see that my salt solution is heavier because we know there's salt particles dissolved in there. Okay, so now I'm going to add 1 gram masses to the plain water until it's balanced. So the amount of mass added to the water is equal to the mass of salt dissolved in this salt solution. Let me get my gram pieces. So I can add 1, 2, 3, still not balanced, 4, 5, maybe one more, 6. Okay, so it took 6 grams to achieve balance. Okay. So what is the mass of the water before we added the salt? Well, it was 50 grams because volume and mass are equal. What is the mass of the solution after we add the salt and the filter? Well, I added in 6 more grams. So now it would be equal to 56. Where did the extra mass in this solution come from? Well, in here, it came from the dissolved salt. So what does this tell us about the matter in the solution? So even though I can no longer see that dissolved salt, it's still there because the solution still had more mass than the plain water. Okay. So remember, a salt solution is made of 2 parts, the water and the salt. The solvent is the liquid, the solute is the solid material that dissolves. A solution is always made of a solute and a solute that dissolves in it. So many different materials dissolve in water. Remember that water is a solvent, but it just reminds you that it's the liquid part. So going back to our focus question, is there a limit to the amount of salt that will dissolve? And we can answer, we can say yes. Once it stops dissolving, the solution becomes saturated and it won't, so that no more salt will dissolve in that solution.